Do you want to learn how to create a velocity-based crescendo in Logic Pro on any software instrument part? So let's check this out. I created this short example and I will start playing it without a crescendo like this. And then I created it with a crescendo like this. Okay, so the way you create a crescendo is obviously to increase the dynamics, the level over time. And you can do this with expression, with modulation on some software instrument. But in this video, I will show you how to do it with the velocity values. So if we take, for example, these drums here, if we go into the first part here, you can see if I zoom in, the dynamics is pretty flat. You get the variation in dynamics, but it doesn't really increase over time. Whereas here, if you check the velocity here, it doesn't look like it is increasing, but I have used a trick, which I will show you now, which is if you go into the track inspector and then go to MIDI effects on this track, I have added the velocity processor. So check out what I did. If you open up this here, you can see I've used this add slider, and it starts on minus 30, so it doesn't actually add, it subtracts, and then I have automated it. If I click A to watch the automation, and I have added it to read in automation, then you can simply click here on velocity and then add. So I've recorded automation for add on the velocity processor, and if you check here in the sequencer, you can see it goes from minus 30 to plus 30, which is basically adding 60 velocity values of dynamic range, because it starts softer, so you can hear the difference here. Here it's on 0 default, so it doesn't do anything. I haven't added any automation here on the first part, so it's pretty flat. But here you can see it starts on minus 30, which means that these velocity levels have been pushed out 30. So the average velocity is 30 below what it shows here. And then you can see it automates over time with this line here to plus 30. And you can see it here. So this is a great way of making a crescendo or diminuendo by using the velocity processor and this add or the scale level. I prefer the add because it shows more the actual level. So it goes from, in this case, minus 30 to plus 30 for the average velocity. So that is one way, one super cool trick I have found to create crescendos and diminuendos on the actual velocity. Another way is to print it in, so to speak, into the dynamic range. So if we check this here, go here again, the piano here, pretty flat. You get the variation still, but it doesn't really go up in dynamics. It goes up in, as you can hear, in pitch. But if you check over here, you can see it starts very soft and goes up and up and up and up. So this is a crescendo. Okay, so how do you make this so it actually is printed into the velocity? Sometimes you prefer that. Sometimes you might prefer using the dynamics velocity processor. The advantage of the velocity processor is that you can actually go in and change the variation on the velocity differences here, and you will still have this one here. And also, it's easier to just go in and fix the dynamic range for as much as you want the crescendo to be or the diminuendo by simply changing the automation. So it's probably quicker to work with, in my opinion, at least. So if you do this crescendo on the velocity, the burned-in velocity levels here, so if you just drag a line, like left-clicking and dragging a line, what happens is that Logic will put those at a perfect gradual increase in velocity levels like this. Okay? And that is not natural because you don't have the independent variation. It's so static. You want the variation. I mean, especially on drums, you need the accents, the up and down beats, and so on. So what you want to do is hold down the command key while you left click and drag out the line. And that will make sure that the independent variation, you can see the variation here, will remain. So you simply add an average increase like this. Okay, so now you get the crescendo. And in case you think it goes too loud in dynamics, you can reduce it in two ways. So either you use Command A to select everything, and then you simply grab one of these and drag it down. If you do, check what happens. You're actually compressing it, as you can see. It does not only go down, but you can see the dynamic range is decreasing, and upwards it is increasing. And you can use this to your advantage, because if you use it in combination with the velocity slider over here, that simply takes everything down or up in unison or in sync. So the dynamic range will remain. So if I decrease this or increase it, you can see the dynamic range of the crescendo remains. So you can start like this. So it goes from super soft into mezzo forte or something. Let's see. Like this. And once you are down there, you might want to change it to have the crescendo more prominent. Then again, once all is selected, left click and drag upwards, and you can see in the left side here, it increases in the very tiny values, the right side more. So now we get a much stronger crescendo. So that is the two ways, in combination with these extra tips for compressing or expanding the dynamic range, to create crescendos or diminuendos in the velocity levels in Logic. Now choose which video you are going to watch next, or you can check out the amazing bonuses in the video description.